Welcome to Table Talk. We like to dive into the stories behind successful business families and their journeys. Today, I'm excited to be joined by George Cantalini, President, CEO, and owner of Cantiro. Under George's leadership, Cantiro has become one of Western Canada's most innovative real estate companies, building on the values and roots that started out as the Beaverbrook Group of companies. So George, welcome to Table Talk. To start,
Thank you.
Could you share a little bit about Cantiro for those who may not be familiar with it, and also what makes it unique?
Sure. Well, started with Beaverbrook Developments, which was a land development company where we build communities. And then that was when I took it over was in 1995. Then from there, we started Dolce Vita Homes, which was in 2008, 9, somewhere in there. And then after that, we started another company called In-House by Beaverbrook and Beaverbrook Commercial, which was doing multifamily sites and some commercial sites. About 5 years ago, we decided that having all these different companies and we were starting to move into other jurisdictions, that to start building brands, 5 brands instead of 1 brand, that we should do it under one name. So we consolidated all the companies into one and came up with the Cantiro name.
Okay, nice. So we'll get into the name in a second.
Sure.
But your story with the company, I understand, began before ownership.
Yes.
So you started out as an employee, I believe. Can you kind of take us back to the early days and how you first got connected with Beaverbrook?
Well, my background is I'm a CA, which is now CPAs. And but once I got my degree, I realized I wasn't really cut out for accounting. I didn't really love it. So I went on a journey of looking for work that was, I guess, accounting related, but not accounting. Okay. And I started in working for a company called Tridel Enterprises in Toronto. I was living there. They got me to do a lot of special projects. They were a real estate company. Did a lot of different interesting things with them. They had a division called Beaverbrook, and they were setting up a division out here in Edmonton in the late 80s, early 90s. And they were looking for somebody to come out and just spend a little time to help set up the offices here and get things going. And it was going to be a land development company. And so I started coming out once a quarter. We started growing. It started being once a month. And I was spending most of my time here instead of Toronto. So in 93, I actually moved here full time. Okay. Sold my home in Toronto. By that time, I became president of Beaverbrook, and we were doing five or six different land development projects in and around the Edmonton region. But 1995 came along, and that's when Klein came into office and started cutting, and it hit Edmonton a lot harder than it hit a lot of the other, like Calgary or other jurisdictions, because we're very much of a government town. And so I went into the executive of Tridel early in 1995 and told them that we were going to have a little bit of trouble making it through the rest of the year, and that since the way we did, we sent money when we had it. When we needed it, they sent it to us. They said, well, George, they were having their own financial difficulties because the market wasn't very good in Toronto at that time either. Yeah. And they said, so just get rid of it, sell it all off, clean it up, come back to Toronto, we'll give you a job. So I came back to Edmonton. I started talking to a very good friend of mine who was also our lawyer, Tony Cairo. And I told him the story, and he says, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I guess I'm going to clean it up, move back to Toronto. And he says to me, you have the curse of a good paycheck. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting one. I grew up immigrant family. Parents were all about coming to Canada and for stability and for getting, so they were always about get a good job, get a career, get a good job, make sure you have security for the rest of your life, like that. So they weren't really risk takers. No. So hearing that was kind of threw me a little bit. But I thought about it for a while, and I said, well, why not? I went back to Tony and I said to him, well, if you think this is such a good idea, then maybe you do this with me. And because I can't afford to pay you legal fees and I need a lawyer to negotiate all this stuff, because we had to renegotiate all the bank debt. We had to do new agreements. The debt was about as high as the value of so I only bought Beaverbrook for $1. I didn't really spend very much money. So it was the best dollar I ever spent in my life. But it was a lot of work to get it cleaned up. We did get it cleaned up by the end of 95 and did take control of the company. And unfortunately, Tony passed away at a very young age at 58. His family's still involved, and that's why it's Cantiro. It's Cantalini Cairo. Okay. So I'm not the sole owner, and actually we have employee owners too. So we have a little bit of everything, but that's how the Cantiro name came about, and that's how I started in the business.
Nice. Okay. So kind of Tony had that role early on as kind of a mentor.
He was a big time mentor. And he was a little bit more of a risk taker, even though he was a lawyer. He had done real estate. He was good to have, because as I started growing, maybe I was more of a risk taker than he was, because he told me the story that, at 29 he was a millionaire. At 30 he was broke, because he lived through the 80s. And he was 14, 15 years older than me, so had lots more wisdom and experience. And so I learned from him and took a lot of really good things from what he said and did. And it's interesting because now his son has taken over his law practice, Ben Cairo. And he was very young when he took over the practice, because Tony died at a very young age. So I was kind of his mentor, and now I see Ben mentoring people in my organization, because he's now kind of gotten to that point where he's a lot of experience. So it's good to see the families move along.
Yeah. So they were like Tony and his family were a partner, and they're still engaged.
They're still engaged.
Today.
Yeah, they're still partners.
Yes. And then inside of that, or aside from the name, kind of what ways are they engaged? Like, is there anything like in the business plan or strategy that you incorporated from Tony, maybe?
Like every year we sit down and come up with what our year is going to be and what we're going to do. And mostly Ben, but his brother too, Tim, is also involved in the decision making on major decisions. Okay. Well, but Ben's involved every day because he's still our lawyer, so he sees everything.
Yeah, he's pretty engaged. Yeah, nice. So take us back to that day in maybe 1995 where you transitioned from an employee of the Toronto company to owning this dollar company. How did that feel? How did you go about as a leader that day when you came into the office to share that news?
There wasn't too much leadership. There was me at that point and one other person. Okay. So, actually, I shared an office with a competitor because that was, we talked about it because the market was so bad. We said, well, why don't we go together? We need the same type of people. We said, well, if we both went on our own, we'd be able to hire either a receptionist or an accountant, but we wouldn't be able to hire both. So if we went together, we could have a receptionist and an accountant and share them. And so for actually, I think it was first 10, 15 years, we shared offices, even though as we grew and grew and grew and grew, we shared offices. Eventually we split off, but that was Strata Developments and Blaine Usnick. And that actually was very great mentoring also, because my background was accounting, so I could help him with some of the finance and accounting. His background was engineering, and I didn't really know that much about land development, to tell you I knew the numbers. Yeah. I had been out in the field a little bit, but anytime I had questions on things, I would go across the hall to Blaine and say, "Hey, what do you think?" or "What's going on?" and da da da. So I learned a lot about engineering too. Yeah,
so interesting. So as you were building out the company then, and as you started that growth that probably came relatively quickly, how did you kind of go about, things like establishing the values and thinking about the strategy?
Well, I mean, to me, the value is always treat everybody as you want to be treated. I mean, I think that's just in life in general. And so always thought of employees or company as almost like family, and that somebody told me a long time ago, hire the best people you can find and you'll look good.
Yeah.
And so I would always go and try to get the best people, pay them what they were worth, and always gave a little bit of the piece of the action to them too. So let them feel like they're part of it, the ownership, and that my growth is their growth and my success is also their success. So, because as an employee, I never loved the fact that I knew by the day one of the year that the maximum I could make by the end of the year.
Yeah.
That was somewhat bothersome. Not everybody's like that, but that was my thing. So I thought, well, this maybe other people would be the same. And there's some that are, and some that just want to know how much they're going to make. And so you have to figure out how people are wired.
Yeah.
But,
and so how do you go about bringing people on in ownership? Is it self-select? Is it,
well, it was, at the beginning I was self-select. Then as the company has grown, all employees are allowed to buy in at certain levels. The executive are all owners, so that has grown just over time organically. That first it was not really ownership, but like phantom ownership. That phantom ownership we turned into real ownership, and then I started offering to all employees because, like, why not? And we help them buy in because there's a program for that too. So they can see their growth.
Nice. And do you have any examples or any kind of thoughts that come to your mind around, like, what kind of change do you see in people when they go from an employee to an employee owner?
They take ownership. I mean, it's like being a renter in a home and being the owner of the home. When you're a renter, you think, well, I want to keep my house for, I'm only going to be here a few years or whatever it is, and you're not going to destroy it, but you're probably not going to maintain it to the same type of level that you would if you were an owner and you're looking long term. So they don't just think of today or today's bonus or tomorrow's bonus, but they're looking way down the road of how are my shares going to grow, and how's this going to be way down the road, and how does it affect not just today but tomorrow. So I think that's the biggest change when they become more than just employees. Yeah,
it's nice how you're able to tie that metaphor back into your business model.
Yeah. It's true.
So under your leadership, so since you took over the company, you've seen some pretty phenomenal growth. You've done things like acquiring another home builder or home company, two other companies, a pretty major project with the West Block, and kind of taking that over from, I think, bankruptcy.
Yes.
And you've recently gone on with more of Cantiro Capital, or Cantiro Capital, and the Opportunity Fund. What's your approach to kind of looking at these acquisitions and opportunities and starting these new ventures?
We started in the land development business in 2000, and I guess when I bought the land development company, the market was the worst it's been other than 85, I guess. And so it became a great opportunity, and we had major growth even right off the start because the market was moving up. So I like to do things when people are going against the flow. So try to do things when people aren't doing them. I find that, first of all, there's not as much competition to get in. Second of all, you can probably get some pretty good bargains at that time. And there is availability of people and resources. So the land development company was doing great, but 2007, 2008, that's when the financial crisis happened. We had just launched a subdivision called Upper Windermere in the southwest, and none of the builders that had initially said they had showed interest to build in there were wanted to buy lots at that time because the market was bad.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, this is probably a good opportunity if I'm ever going to start a housing company, because it was real estate related. We already had the land. Why not get into the housing? So I was started with a gentleman called Stu McAndrews and another one called Maurizio Naccarato. Stu's son and my son played hockey together, so we spent a lot of time in an arena.
Yep.
And he's also another CA. He was in between things, and I said, let's start a housing company. He says, well, I don't know anything about housing. And I said, no, but I've talked to you long enough that I know you know a lot about business. It's a lot harder to teach you about business than building homes. So he said, okay. And then Maurizio Naccarato, he's the best salesperson around. And so we decided to start a housing company, and we did. And success right off the bat. Within a year, we had sold 20-something homes, but there was only 3 of us. And I was like, how are we going to do this?
And that was Dolce Vita?
Dolce Vita Homes. Happened that somebody I knew was looking to get rid of their Edmonton operation for housing. It was Centrex at the time. Mm-hmm. Perfect timing, because they had all these employees, not enough volume. We had a lot of volume, not enough employees. So the marriage went together very, very well. We took over them, and so within our second year, we were doing over 100 homes a year.
Wow!
So that was a big volume jump. Yeah, it was big. And then this past year, in 2024, we just took over Morrison's Homes Edmonton division. So,
okay.
And that was another big leap. So it's been, and the same with, you were talking about West Block.
Yeah, I was going to
we were talking about getting into the multifamily infill, because, see that was becoming a bigger and bigger part of the marketplace. Everybody's about density, about, our downtown in our area at that time was starting to really change. Mm-hmm. So I thought we should start a division that looked at that specifically. So we started In-House by Beaverbrook, and we had a couple other projects. One was on 110th Street. We had some land there, and we had some in the just south of White Ave. But then this parcel on 142nd and Stony Plain came available, and we had to get a little creative how to take control of that project. Mm-hmm. It was crane, everybody knows, spinning around for 2 years, and there was a partially built building. Yep. It was a great location. You can never replace the location.
Oh, yeah.
The headache, I don't know, sometimes I wonder if it was worth it, because taking over a partially finished building is not the easiest thing in the world. It's definitely easier to start from scratch than it is to start to work around something, but it has worked out amazingly well. If people have been out there, they'll see, we actually have an urban village. Mm-hmm. Where we have, work, live, play.
And it's interesting. So you kind of started the story about saying, you didn't want to even take over Beaverbrook because of the risk, and you wanted the paycheck. Yeah. And then it seems like everything you've done since then has been like exponentially riskier, like starting the multifamily division by buying a bankrupt lot that's been partially built for years. Seems like a hard way to start.
No, it was, and it was. But I think, the other thing is, we do everything, almost every one of our projects is with investor partners.
Okay.
And so we share the risks. We're very calculated of what we do. We try to make sure that we are very well capitalized when we do a project, so that if the market does turn, we have the ability to hold on and to hang through the ups and the downs. Well, hang through the downs and take advantage of the ups.
Yep.
And so, I love a challenge, I guess. And I find people around me that love it too.
Yep.
You couldn't replicate that location.
No.
it's spectacular. So we thought the headache and the risk was worth it for the location. So, and real estate location. So that's an amazing location.
Yeah.
Just close enough to downtown, but far enough in Glenora. It's just a great spot.
So when you look at kind of some of the other ventures that you've started, maybe on the investor side or the opportunity fund, talk a little bit about those and how those fit into.
So we this past year we just launched the capital pool, our opportunity fund.
Okay.
And it's a little different. As I said, every project we've ever had investors, but it started that you'd be in one project, and as you invest your money, as the project went along, you got your returns, you got your money back.
Yep.
You decide to reinvest in the next project, go on and on and on. It's worked. It's been working. Been doing it for 30 years now. However, as we kept growing, we were doing this almost on a constant basis because there was new projects constantly. And then we started grouping projects. So we started doing what we called capital pools. So we put four to five projects in one pool where we'd raise money.
Yep.
But again, people were putting money in, people were getting money back. Then we had to decide. So then that's where we thought, well, why don't we just do an opportunity fund where two things can happen. One is that our regular investors can invest and they don't have to continually get money back, put money back in. They can go in and out as they please because it's an open-ended fund. So if they decide they want their money, they don't have to wait till the project's done. They can ask for their money back.
Yeah. It's a little bit more liquid.
It's valued every quarter. But also it now becomes RRSP and TFSA eligible.
Okay.
So that helps too with investing, that you can shelter some of that income. And we are opening it up to not just family and friends. Like there is the family and friends, but there is also now the general public that can invest with us and see the same kind of returns that our investors have made in the last 30 years.
Okay.
And it's been, obviously they've done fairly well with us too, because they keep coming back and they've helped us grow as much as we've grown, because we couldn't have just done it organically ourselves. So it's helped.
When you talk about growth, like how big is the organization now in terms of scale?
Well, went from 1 employee to 150 now, 160, somewhere in there. We have revenues will be over $250 million. We manage 350 to 400 million in equity in people's money. So it's a pretty decent sized organization. If you look at it, our land development group doesn't need a lot of employees, even though it does a lot of volume and a lot of numbers.
Yep.
Housing takes a lot more employees. And some of the multifamily, we're starting self-build, but at first we were doing with general contractors, so you didn't need a lot of employees there either. But we're now starting to scale up and build our own multifamily, so you're starting to see.
Okay, so you have essentially your own GC firm as well then?
Yeah, we're starting our own GC firm.
Okay. Wow. And let's go back a little bit to when you kind of took over that first home building company, or kind of Dulce Vita acquired that first company, and you went from kind of like a pretty small group. You said the 3 owners or 3 partners. The land development company probably had pretty limited staff.
Yeah, like 6, 7.
6. And you took over an organization that had a lot of employees.
60.
That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
How did you go about kind of showing your values in the way of Beaverbrook at the time, or Dulce Vita, when you were kind of the smaller of the two?
It took a little bit of work to get culturally our culture in. Not that Centrec's culture they were very similar.
Okay.
Their belief was, again, treat everybody how you want to be treated, because the goal was to win the Customer Choice Award, which is a third-party award. At the time, it was J.D. Powers would give it out. And so our first year after Centrex, we actually won it, and we won it for like 3 years in a row until they stopped making it J.D. Powers. But because we believed in, treat everybody how you want to be treated. Treat your customer as if you were that person sitting on the other side of the table. And, there are so many components that go into a home. You try to make it as perfect as you can, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be something somewhere. And we don't manufacture the furnaces. We don't manufacture the air conditioners. So
not yet anyways.
No, it's not going there. But you have to, but things happen. So we will go in and take care of it. And that's been our philosophy. And Centrex was that. It took a bit to get Centrex 60 employees to start calling themselves Dolce Vita instead of Centrex. And that Centrex was much more of a builder that built smaller product, and Dolce Vita was much more custom product. So it was a little bit of a mindset change too. So, but people, once they saw and were led and saw the results, and they came along. It took a little bit of time, but it's patience. It's showing leadership. It's being there, present.
Yeah, showing up.
Yeah, showing up and leading by example, I think, is the biggest thing. And I have to give credit to Stu McAndrews and Maurizio. I mean, they were the ones who were feet on the ground. I was more kind of in the background and on the housing company. So they took it and went with it. So
nice. And if you think of all these projects and all the different things that you've done over the years, do you have a favorite? Like, what's been one of the most challenging or interesting projects that you've taken on?
Well, I would say I was going to pick an area. So in the land development business, in their communities, I'd say the Windermere project is probably the ones that most proud of or is the most interesting. At the time we were buying land in that southwest corner, the city was telling us that wasn't going to be developed for 50 years. We were like, that's crazy once the Anthony Henday is coming, because the biggest infrastructure cost is a highway. So like once you got a highway, the rest of it you can figure out through engineering. And they were like, no. So us and another developer, Delcon, had decided that we were going to bring this land into the city for development. So you do what's called an area structure plan. But the area structure plan went from, the Anthony Henday all the way to 41st Street, 41st Avenue Southwest.
Okay.
So, that's a whole city. That's 60,000 people. And we had to plan that whole area back in early 2000s. And it was, people thought we were kind of crazy a little bit going out there, especially with Windermere Ridge, which was out there even before the Anthony Henday. And it's, those are the lots along the river where you see some pretty spectacular homes now.
Yep.
So that and Upper Windermere are probably, top of the list, because it was such a pioneering project, and it's turned out amazing. And now it's home to probably 40,000 people today. Wow. And almost done. So that's kind of interesting to see.
And so driving through that must be pretty interesting for you. Right?
Yeah. To while watching what you planned 20 years ago coming to reality. And we have 5 projects in that area now. So we love the Southwest. It's a great spot, the Windermere. And I said in the multifamily, both our project, the purpose-built rental on 110th Street, this is called CX. It's a pretty cool project. Our first purpose-built high-rise rental, but went very well. Had tons of interest in it from other outside people. And West Block. That is like that put us on the map. I mean, we have been, as much as been in business all these years, everybody thinks that's our one project, even though we have 25 to 30 different projects. But it is pretty special. I mean, and to me, those are really special. I lived in Upper Windermere for 20 years, and I now live in West Block. So
Okay, nice.
I also will, I always say that we do it because this is where we would want to be and how we want to live. So it's unbelievably convenient. It's great. It's, said close enough to downtown,
Well,
but also far enough.
yeah, and that kind of goes into your value proposition
Yes.
of treating people,
Yes.
treating the
Yeah.
customer how you want to be treated,
Yeah.
because you became the customer.
Became the customer. So yeah. So
Nice.
yeah.
So how do you kind of balance that, where you're always trying to meet the expectations of your customer, or set those values, but at the same time pushing the innovation and risk pretty high?
I think you have to push. I say to my staff, we could either be Blackberry or we could be Apple. You take your pick, because if you sit there and say we are the best and we are always we've done it so well and look at what we've done, you're going to end up Blackberry.
Yep.
But if you keep innovating and changing and looking at what people want and need, even before they know what they want and need, and you innovate, then you're going to be leading the pack instead of trying to catch up. So we're always trying to push the boundaries a little here and there where we can. In the land development side, we started doing smaller product, tighter product, mixing different product lines together where everybody did the same. It used to be that there was one architectural theme for the whole subdivision. We were the first ones to say, why? Like, people love different homes that are theirs, that they can make, look, it still looks good. It looks amazing. And now everybody's doing the same. So we've actually in Spruce Grove, we did a zoning that they let us come up with that was a blanket zone that let us do different product instead of zoning every single lot, one single family, one duplex. They liked how well it turned out. They made that their zoning for the whole subdivision, for the whole city. So
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, great, because we were innovators, but now everybody had it. So anyways, we have to do the next thing. So we keep moving forward. And that, even the mixed use of West Block we did a mass timber building, which I don't know if you know, but the 3-story office building is mass timber. So It was the biggest one in Alberta at the time.
Wow.
We were pioneering, so we had to convince a lot of different people. First of all, fire ratings, load bearing. Like, there was not as much as people want to be innovative, even at municipalities. When you do things differently, you have to be patient, and you have to be an educator too, because they were telling us that we had to drywall over these beautiful timbers, and we were like, oh no, these are more fireproof than steel.
Yeah.
So we always are trying to push the envelope and do some new things and try to stay ahead of the curve instead of catching up. This past year we built a home that was all steel. So it's a rolled steel where there's a machine that the metal is a rolled steel metal. The machine makes every single stud and to the exact size, so you don't have any waste. It's manufactured in a shop, and then you can expand a lot bigger. So even the joists, everything was metal, so there's no wood inside that would burn.
That's crazy.
So we did one home as an experiment. We're looking to continue that down the way too. So you'll probably see a little bit more of that. The home sold right away. An engineer was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" And they bought it and love it.
So is the philosophy that drives kind of both that and the wooden office building, like, they seem almost opposite?
Well, both are both innovative. The wood office is actually, as I said, more fire resistant than the steel one. And it is you don't have to. Your actual structure is your aesthetic. So you don't have to drywall it. You don't have to do the ceiling, and you don't paint. So really, it is, and wood is renewable.
Yep.
But it's the way it's built. It's not always the best wood, but when you put it all together, it looks really cool and looks strong. So
because we are a family business podcast, I thought we'd switch a little bit over
Sure.
To the family side of things.
Sure.
So you have two kids?
2 kids.
Okay. One, and I understand one works in the business, one works outside of the business.
Yes.
Did you give them different advice? Like how did that play out?
So I have Matthew is 27, and my daughter Serena is 25. And I guess when I always thought they should have some kind of career, like some kind of designation and education before they came into the business. So I was talking to Matthew, he's the older one, and he was going into business. And I said, well, why don't you go into accounting? And he was like, you didn't like accounting. I said, I know, but it's a great education. It's gives you lots of different things you can do with it. And he says, no, I took some accounting courses. I don't really like accounting. So he went into finance. And he actually got his CFA this year. So that was
Nice,
pretty awesome.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. It's a very, very tough one. It's harder than the CPA, I guess, to get.
Yeah.
But he's always been interested in the business. And from a kid when he was probably 1 or 2, he was in the back seat driving around with me looking at sites, and he knew every machine and what it was called and got to ride on them all. And so
Nice.
he's been very involved and part of it. So, but now because we're doing the capital pool, he's getting involved in that because that's his background with the CFA.
Yeah.
He did do a little bit of everything. So he had worked for the development, the communities group, and he was in the multifamily group. Now he's going over to the finance group. So my daughter Serena, she, I guess, was deciding what to do. She was more into the sciences at the time. But when she went to university, she decided she was going to go into business. And I was a little surprised, but happy about it.
Yeah.
And she very happy about it. And I was like, what? She goes, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of neat to see and do. And she thought she could do more things with a business degree. And then when she had to specialize, she said she was going into accounting.
So is she listening to your advice to Matthew?
I said, that's exactly. I said, well, accounting? Why are you going to go into accounting? And she goes, well, you told Matthew he should go into accounting. You don't think I should? I said, no, I didn't say that. I was like, I just shocked. She goes, yeah, I think I liked, well, she did a double major. She was at Sauder School of Business in UBC, and she did real estate and accounting. So she did a double major, and then she just got her CPA this year too. So
nice, big year then.
Big year for the kids. Yeah. Yes, awesome year. So she's working for Ernst & Young, EY, I guess it's called now, in Toronto. So again, she was like, well, you said you love Toronto and living in Toronto. And I said, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so she said, well, I'd like to spread my wings and do that for a little bit. So yeah, she's in Toronto. We'll hopefully one day come back and
it's like I worked for EY in Calgary, and it's such an amazing learning opportunity to work with those firms, like the types of clients and opportunities you have.
You see so much. That's what you get to see different types of industries, different clients, how people run different things. So, I find the accounting profession, because you're going in and auditing, you have to be analytical very quickly, because you're only there for a very short time. If you want to learn this business and understand it and what's important and not, you don't have a lot of time to sit around and do it. You got to figure it out quick, and you got to go and you got to make some decisions. So it's a very interesting, maybe not the work after, but learning is good.
Yeah. So how does kind of having one of your kids in the business, the other outside of the business, how did that change your family dynamic at all? Like, how does it change your relationship with either of them or both of them?
I think trying to keep the same relationship. I mean, it's way easier to stay in touch when he's there every day at the office. I mean, I don't see him every day because doesn't work in the same area for me. He doesn't report to me. I want to make sure that was always,
Yep.
I mean, we have a lot of management, and I didn't want to, you don't want to parachute somebody in like that and screw up a good thing either. And for him, he has to prove his worth too, I think, as you go along. He understands that and knows that, he's always probably going to have to actually work harder than the next person to prove himself. Getting his CFA sure opened eyes too, because this doesn't mean that you can't cheat on that one. That one's no silver spoon getting that. You gotta earn it. So he did.
And the attrition rate and getting through those levels is huge.
It's less than 40% pass rate three exams each exam. So it's not an easy one. And you study on your own time. He's worked and studied. So I see him. And my daughter, I speak to her almost daily, but keeping in touch and trying to see how her career, it's interesting because, I did that 40 years ago, I guess, almost now, and it hasn't changed that much. And neither has the complaints or the work. There's a lot of work. You work very concentrated time between, December and end of May that you have to work your butt off. And so it's just good because we can relate to a lot of different things. So I can relate on both of them because one's in the business a business I was in and what I did. And so it works out really well that way. They're not really highly competitive. They're very compatible. And so I think, I think one day they would make an amazing pair. We do have offices now in Ontario, in Kitchener-Waterloo. So maybe one day if she wants to stay out there, there's opportunity there too. But I don't push them to. I let them decide of how they want to do it and where they want to go. But if they're going to eventually sit in the chair, they've got to work there, earn their way up to it. So
So aside from kind of earning their own
stripes,
and going to school to get that designation, both of those sounded pretty important to you.
Yes.
What other kind of guidelines or principles do you have before they join the business? Did you put in any protocols or conversations or? Well,
yeah, it was. If you're coming to work for us, you're going to be a regular employee as if you were working somewhere else. You're going to get you're not getting any special treatment. You don't get any extra vacation time. You are, and that's what I've asked my staff to do too. Is don't treat them that they are someone special. They have to work and earn it and go and do the work. And I learned that lesson a long time ago too, because when I was working for another company, the son of one of the owners, I was sent out to help him grow a business, and this was one of my special projects. And he was a few years younger than me, and going through, and I was like thinking, how do I know more than he does? Like he's been in this business forever. Grew up in the business. His family's done unbelievably well. He says, George, I never had to work. Everybody covered for me. If I didn't show up, nobody said anything. Nobody told my parents, nobody told my dad that I wasn't at the job and I didn't do this. And they let me go off here and I would take off these days and do this. I never really learned anything. I got an education, but I never really learned any business. And I was like, put that in the little back of the head and understand that you have to learn it and earn it. And he's doing very well now, but it was a big learning curve for him. And so
you had to figure it out. Yeah.
And so, with Matthew, who's been in the business, it's okay. Learn a little bit about the land side, learn a bit about multifamily, and make your way around so you understand how it works and what everybody has to do to get to where they are. So
nice. And looking towards the future, where do you see things going with the firm? Where do you see things going in terms of the growth and innovation? Anything you're really focused on or excited for?
I think a few things. One is the Opportunity Fund. I think it's going to take some time to get some legs. We've already, I think, raised $15 million in it, so that's a pretty good start, considering we just started in September. I think that is going to grow our business because we don't have to. It won't be as administratively as having all these different little investor groups where we keep taking money in, money out, and having it's going to consolidate it. Mm-hmm. I think as getting in the public, the general public into that will grow. It'll also allow us to do more projects because we'll have more ability to grow. We fund it with our own money. We always put our money where our mouth is. So if we don't believe in it enough to put our money, we don't ask for anybody else's. Yeah. So people can be comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. I see that, and I see just growing in different jurisdictions slowly in Canada. It takes real estate. You got to kind of know like you said, location. Yep. Like got to know it. You got to have feet on the ground, and so we're here. We've been here for forever. We went to the Okanagan. It's kind of a tough market there today, but mm-hmm. everybody has their ups and downs, and it was good a few years ago. So, yep. But I think Alberta is great today. Mm-hmm. Will it stay like that? We've seen lots of ups and downs here, so we always try to have some different areas that offset. We're in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is a good Ontario market.
Yeah, pretty rapid growth there as well.
Yeah, it's very good growth, high tech. I mean, well, that's where the home of Blackberry was. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of employees there, and Google has moved there big time because they had a great employment base. So I think that's where we're going to continue to grow and expand across. I see that, that we're looking more into that steel housing, because I think fireproofing and weatherproofing is becoming much more important over time. You can use recycled metal, so that's a big thing too. So that's another area where it's a lot of growth.
Yeah,
I think. Plus, there hasn't been anything that has really changed in the housing business over all these years, if you think about it. Like, it's maybe the tools have changed. Mm-hmm. There used to be a hammer, and now there's a gun that nails the nails in. There was the hand saws, there's Alexa, but really there hasn't been anything majorly changed. So we're looking at seeing, what is the next disruptive item there, that we actually done modular homes. We were in Fort McMurray building homes. And so we had the modulars. We didn't build them, but we had a company here build the modulars here.
Yep, and fab them on site.
And then we would put them together out on site in Fort McMurray. So it was a 2-story. So they'd come out, we do the basement. They'd put the first story crane in the second, fix it all up, and looked awesome. And we could build houses in in literally weeks because they were all built in a factory. It worked out there because you couldn't get labor at the time, and you couldn't get material. It was just tough for everything.
Yeah.
But it is more expensive, and it is, and for some reason, even though it's a better home because you have it has to be built that much more solid to travel.
Yep, to transport it, yeah.
People discount it because they say it's modular, which is really interesting. But so you have to, it worked in Fort McMurray because the prices were so, people just wanted anything at the time.
Yeah, there was no.
But yeah, here it didn't. It has never really taken off. More in rural areas where you can't get a home. So, but what is going to be the next disruptive
technology
in housing? I think same with high rises. They're starting to do high rise mass timber buildings. Mm-hmm. Hasn't really taken off yet either, and really the costs. There's no significant cost savings. So it's cool, but it hasn't quite got there yet. So I don't know. We're just always looking at what's next and what's going on and how can we make things better and better mousetrap.
Nice. It's interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity. It seems like you're thinking of things very differently.
Yes.
In terms of advice for other leaders, whether it's, people thinking about bringing their kids into their business or people thinking about acquiring a firm that's bigger than them, what would you tell people? Or what would you have wanted to know 20 years ago or 5 years ago?
Well, it's interesting about what you said. The first question was bringing your kids into the business. I was, aware of it or looking. I always try to think ahead, and I looked at so many different and talked to so many different people of how they did it. Mm-hmm. And I guess it went from, the advice was never have your kids in your business.
Yeah.
That no way allow them to be in your business, to like they're by your side and they're just going to be the heir apparent and that's it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, there's got to be something in between. And so looking around, I don't think there's any right or wrong. I think there's different things work for different people. Yeah. I think it all, that's what I noticed over time, mm-hmm. that, some of them, the ones that their kids weren't in the business and went on their own, were amazingly successful too, and did their own thing and proved themselves. There was the people who were by their father's side or their mother's side and watched the business grow from infancy and just became the heir apparent, and mm-hmm. that's worked too. And I've also seen the opposite side where neither one of those worked. So yeah. I think you have to decide on your own what's best with what's personality, your personality, what's the children's personalities, what's the age difference too.
Culture of the business too, like all of those things.
We have a lot of professional management that's worked there. We have one gentleman who's been there, Jody Vatsko, has been, I think, 18 years with me. So wow. Yeah, he's seen it grow and helped me grow. And you want to make sure that all those people are taken care of too. So, nice. So I think there's no right or wrong answer of how to do it. I think mm-hmm. it's all individual of how you decide it is. It's different too, because we're not 100% owned by the Cantalini family. Yeah. We, I have the majority and have the rule, but I also very aware of all the rest of my partners and investors. So yeah. The second part of the question was
more about acquisitions, but
I never thought I was a leader. I didn't ever aspire to be that. I grew up in a family where it was go get a job mm-hmm. and work and put your head down. But I think the biggest thing is having good mentors and looking around, because almost everything that happens probably happened sometime in the past. Maybe not exactly the same, but learn from all the different things that you've learned over the past and be aware and try to incorporate them into what you do. And just lead by example, I think, is the biggest thing. And so like when we acquired other companies, it was, our employees are very happy. We win awards for that too. Mm-hmm. Greatest places to work for the last few years. And so if that is the case, then everybody will pick up and work and help you pull instead of going the opposite direction. So I think that's the key, is just and getting personal with them too. Like I still go to the office and walk around and talk to people and say hello. And
it's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, brought another question to mind. Do you ever think back to what it would be like if you decided not to buy this company for $1 and stayed working for Tridel?
They're still around.
Do you still talk to them?
Not really.
No?
Not a lot. I still follow them, but I don't really talk to them that much. I think like, how things in your life change drastically because of little small decisions that might end up big things. And I think if I was there, I think I would have probably made my way up to the executive area. I have faith in my abilities and growth, but I don't think I would have ever had ownership and I probably would have lived a comfortable life, but it wouldn't have quite been the same. And it is pride and just seeing the successes. And there's a lot of people that have had success with me, which is, I've always believed in, somebody gave me a chance, somebody gave me a hand up. So why not pass that along?
Yep,
So
building up others around you. Yeah.
So that's the same with, our ownership group has all done very well over the years because they've been able to participate with me. So
nice. So kind of last question to wrap things up. I like to ask this to most people on the podcast. What's kind of, if you think about like one book or a course or key learning that you've had in your life that has changed how you look at things professionally, or even with your family, what would you tell people to read? What would be
that's
your
a bad
advice? Question
for me.
Okay.
I'm not a ferocious reader.
Okay.
I do more in asking questions and observing.
Okay.
I think is my way of doing it. I've had great mentors in my life that I've been able to learn and watch and learn from. I've joined, I never was big on joining like YPO or any of that stuff because I always thought I was too busy and I got to do my thing. But in hindsight, I think that was probably a mistake because I think your peer group and people that are in the same, being able to speak to somebody who's in the same space, going through the same kind of things is probably really good to go over. I have my staff now involved in those organizations, and my kids, and I joined it one later in life and found, wow, this is really good because I'm learning from other people that, like I said, experience is amazing. And I think that's where I've learned most of mine and mentors, and I've had some really good ones and been lucky with that. And so I always try to get other people to find, we have a mentorship program at our office now where I'm mentoring somebody and they're mentoring somebody. And so we just go and casually talk about a whole bunch of different things that we can learn from. And also we did hire, when we all got together as, instead of being individual siloed companies and went together as Cantiro as one company, did hire a consultant to help us do that. Okay. And because, I never really worked for a large organization that there was all these small little companies and they were small. So it was pretty easy to manage that. But when you have now different layers of executive and it starts being much more of a triangle instead of flat, how do you deal with that? And I think knowing your weaknesses, so I knew that was not my strength. My strength is more on, gut instinct on real estate. So got a consultant in to help us, and it's been amazing. He's really helped our organization become a well-run organization that has good mentorship, good growth, good layers of management. So
awesome. Well, that's a good place for me to transition. So actually, ABFI has a long history of running peer mentorship groups in the family business space. We're relaunching them this year that we're really excited about. And really just wanted to thank you for your time today, for sharing your story and insights, and really think that there's a lot of kind of powerful nuggets that people can take away around, leadership, even though you said, it's not never something that you've aspired to be, but I think you have, more than 150 people, who are pretty powerfully following you. And also about kind of the power of mentorship within organizations. And I think there is a lot there around risk taking as well, and the power of kind of getting out of your comfort zone to do what's best for you, but also looking at how that translates into innovation and risk taking to do the best thing for your customer, so that everyone can have a good future.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me tell my story. It's been awesome. I appreciate it.
This This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, visit our website at road55.ca.